StarCraft 2, as we have got in the upper right, the red Zerg, representing on side, it is Solar. Take us on the blue Terran in the bottom left corner, HeroMarine. Game number 1 of our best of 3 first of the day. So it will still be best of 3 today, guys, for the first, second, and third matches. The only non-best of 3s will be the upper bracket, lower bracket, and grand finals. The first of those two being best of 5, and the final being a best of 7 with a 1-0 lead for the winner bracket player. So everything best of 3 until we get to those the rounds with the finals in the name, basically. So top 3 of the tournament will play out a little bit extra. Quick mention about prize money, obviously, where players are at in terms of what they've won so far here in the Winter Championship. Top 6 walked away with a guaranteed $250. You win this initial match here, you get top 4, that's $325. You're then playing the next best of 3 for $100 prize money difference, and those best of 5s are where the money really counts. Third place, $425. Second place, $750. And first place, $1,500 on the line for these guys. So let's see what happens. Let's see what will go down as we get into game number 1 of the best of 3. We get this underway, and we see whether Solar or HeroMarine will make their bid to be the WardiTV Winter Champion. Obviously, top 2 as well. Extra bonus, they qualify directly to WardiTV 2023, which is our $10,000 plus event at the end of this year. That's what the entire WardiTV 2023 circuit builds into, and that is going to be the final event of the year for us. So top 2 automatically qualify for that. They don't have to worry about Wardy points or anything like that, which you do earn from playing in our events throughout the year. That's all very exciting. Barracks about to finish up. Command center is going to be done in a moment. An orbital command on the way in here as well from HeroMarine, as we have a couple of queens, a few lings, all building up at the moment, all getting underway for game number 1. Reactor will drop down in the barracks, the factory building. This was a CC first, so double orbital at the same time. HeroMarine taking a little bit of a greedy setup here to get started. As we just see our Overlord coming to poke at the front. As an SCV comes up this high ground, puts a depot down, the Marine will just be patrolling across the edges, obviously to push that Overlord back, just in case it tries to, sink its teeth deep into the main base to get a look as to what's going on, but unlikely to really see that be too influential or anything. Oh, and already some mischief here from HeroMarine's second factory. I was going to say, coming into this, we saw a good amount of mech yesterday, and I feel like we could see a good amount of mech today as well in the TvZs. It definitely seems to be becoming a more popular way of playing once more. So we do start with the double Hellion. The barracks moves to the side, drops down a tech lab, and that's obviously going to set up for the blue flame Hellion setup. So Infernal Pre-Igniter will be on the way in. As a couple of SCVs pull, and the Marine will get there, and we'll be able to turn those 2 lings around. A couple of Hellions still coming through the SCVs as well. We just have the link speed coming up to being about halfway done for the moment. Overlords again just cruising through to the middle of the map right now as our Hellions continue out up to the top. Hellions get there, the couple of Hellions taking some shots already. And we will just see our Infernal Pre-Ignited just a couple moments away from finishing. And obviously then the excitement will start. Until then, I mean, it's kind of about, well, can Solar scout? Can he figure this out? Can he recognize what this is going to be? I say mech, of course, there are sometimes follow-ups from the blue flame. And in fact, a month or 2 ago, I might have said that following this up with bio was the more popular way of doing it. Nowadays, I think mech is a much more reasonable and a much more, consistent option from this. And there is a third factory as well to just really confirm that this is going to be mech as well. So yes, worth mentioning though, because there is still that off chance, and like I say, it wasn't that long ago where actually bio follow-ups off of Blue Flame were not super uncommon at all. Like I say, they were more common even than the mech follow-ups. It's just mech has taken that surge of popularity. The Cyclones are that much better than they used to be. We do see this one Marine, couple of Marines going to come in, and that's going to be a big scout from Solar. Sees factory number 2, we'll see factory number 3, and now he's going to begin his roach run. But is it too late? The Blue Flame Hellions, well, we're 10 seconds out from Blue Flame. So once that blue flame kicks in, you have got access to just absolute drone-ageddon as you get to run on in and fry up those drones. We're not going to go just yet, though, and I feel like we should be poking, right? You've got blue flame. The only thing that's really good against you right now is queens, and There's a pretty late scout from Solar. The Roachron on the way up. I think we dive in here no matter what as we begin to fight some Lings around the other side. Can the Hellions get free of the surround? More or less, yes, they can. Can they find the drone stacking up? No, they cannot. A few more Lings going down. There's only going to be 3 Hellions left. It's a wall on the natural, and the defense from Solar is spot on to shut this down, turn it around, and say, get out of here, and come back later if you want to, but probably don't, because I don't want to see Blue Flame Hellions in my house. Magfield Accelerator coming out. Just see a couple more factories building in. So 2 more factories coming up. Roach missiles upgrade, Roach speed, all of that coming out for the moment here. As we see a few Hellions again rolling around out on that left-hand side. So away they go. A couple of Roaches coming through. First Hellions already getting knocked down. First one gets picked off immediately. Yeah, so far just a solid defense from Solar as he just goes +1 missiles on the Roach speed. We'll see what he turns this into, obviously. Carapace is something which actually is not that useful initially because you're playing against Cyclones which don't really care about upgrades at all when, you know, you're mostly talking about their lock-on damage. So actually I wonder if skipping this Carapace gives you that extra few Roaches to really make a difference. Very well could do, you know, that's definitely something that could possibly happen. So I guess we will see as Magfield finishes. These Roaches will be soon under pressure from those Cyclones. Lock on after lock on, kiting back. That's exactly what HeroMarine is going to be doing throughout the course of this game. We pretty much see that already as those Roaches begin to knock down the rocks in the center. So diving forwards, a couple of Queens already being picked away at. And the other couple of Queens from Solar coming into the center as well. Just seeing the missile upgrade still coming through. Cyclones lock on, the Overseer going down. And HeroMarine will be pulling out the right-hand side. See where he can get to. A little bit of creep spread still pressing forward. We come in. Some of these blue Flame Hellions able to knock down some of the creep spread. Our Cyclones locking on. The Roach is taking big hits. This is obviously what's going to be annoying as Solar was trying to wrap around the other side to get on top of these Cyclones. Can he actually get to? He's got a lot of Roaches. They're pretty close, but not close enough. The interesting thing here now is obviously, do we get across the map as Solar? Because if he actually just continues across the map, he's going to give HeroMarine a very tough time in terms of being able to keep on kiting, which is exactly what these Cyclones need to be doing all the way. I think this is fine for HeroMarine, right? These Roaches are just going to keep dying. Every time the Cyclones lock on, it's a guaranteed kill, and there are just not the numbers necessary, and Solar loses a lot of units on this chase down. He is still just spamming Roaches, by the way, so absolutely not looking towards a more macro-oriented follow-up. He's just spamming Roaches. He is just looking for the here and the now. And to be fair, spamming Roaches might just be the best thing to do in the here and now against this kind of an army, but can't say I'm thoroughly convinced as our Cyclones hang out back on the natural. Cyclones get in, they get a lock on. +2 missiles coming up. The extra Ravages coming in, the extra Roaches are producing, the +2 missiles is, again, on the way. It's still just more of the same. There's no more drones specifically, I think, is most notable. As Solar maxed out, though, and might just be able to surge forward, especially if he comes from the 2 directions, trying to get us around on these Cyclones. Ideally, you just want to stop them from being able to kite you backwards for as long as you have been. Yesterday, we saw some cool burrow play as well to try and cancel the Cyclone lock-ons a bunch. Uh-oh, this is what we're talking about from the other side. Now the Cyclone's going to try and dart out to the left, but they start going down. Cyclones are quite expensive and quite flimsy, so when they do get surrounded like that, damage goes down pretty quickly. There are a few Roaches pushing at the front as well, but the Cyclones there will begin the defense to stop that and halt that aggression. But still in a bit of an interesting place, because Solar's in between these 2 armies of the Terran player, trying to find the cleanup necessary. Again, just purely Roaches. Not even any Lings to try and help catch these units or anything. Just purely Roaches. A few of them on the left-hand side here, hitting a few of these SCVs. What a fascinating. I can't really say that I've seen a game quite like this, not with this exact response, and yeah, that makes it very cool as these Roaches and Ravagers are going to keep on flooding through. They're actually going to be on top of this third base. A couple of them can peel off and hit that mineral line, of course, here, and that's obviously great as well, although I guess you still got to really prioritize the Cyclones, because every time they lock on again, it's a guaranteed kill more or less at this point. 15 SCVs going down as the Cyclones. Can we kill off a couple extra at the very end here? Because the last thing you want is to kill a load of economy, but it not to matter because your opponent just counterattack and kills you. because you don't have an army left over and they never really lost any of their own. I think that's where Solar still finds trouble here, because it's still 67 to 60 workers. You know, it's not like Solar was ever on a massive work account, and so killing a few workers was more just a necessity than anything else. And I still feel like HeroMarine's army is in a good enough place to really deal with that of Solar's, as we knock down a set of rocks in the middle of the map, opening up this space. So rocks get taken down, map gets opened up. Our planetary fortress coming up to completion here as our roaches, our ravagers will knock down these rocks in the center as well, knocking those straight down. And just seeing the roaches coming straight through to pick off a Hellion as well, so able to take that out the equation nice and quickly as well. Ravage just kind of surging across the map still. Cyclones trying to lock on wherever they can, but not really doing that great. SCVs are starting to drop, and again, it's just the power to re-max and come with so much. Even though the Cyclones have found so much value, it's just the kind of the sheer numbers game that's going the way of Solar at the moment. We're starting to get our first tanks out to help solidify some of these defensive positions. Solar's already got the third base lifted up and not mining, however, and honestly, a pretty good chance of getting something similar done on this fourth. Although that's a planetary, you can't just lift up. HeroMarine is going to push this back once again, though, so for now, we remain to be okay. See a few Cyclones still being brought out into play as well. Spread out, a few Cyclones locked on, a couple Lings locked on there. This is actually why Lings are actually kind of a nice addition, because a few Lings in front of the Roaches soak the initial Cyclone lock-on, so then you're not actually hitting Roaches every time, and they're much cheaper units to be losing to the Cyclone lock-on. So, kind of surprised it took this long to see a few Lings. Like I said, you know, it's rare you see kind of purely Roaches, but I have to imagine that's just because that's how Solar felt he was going to overwhelm. Again, he completely skipped the carapace upgrade too, as he's about to have Burrow. Preemptively scanning, though, HeroMarine, A, making sure he's got vision, but B, if, you know, when the Burrow comes into play, those preemptive scans are going to be very important to make sure you can't just burrow out of these lock-ons. That's something I really wanted to see from Clem yesterday, and he just didn't do it at all against Dark. But HeroMarine is bringing it out here against Solar, which is... I mean, obviously we haven't even seen Burrow yet, and it's maybe just the fact that he wants to have the vision for as long as possible too, but it has that double whammy effect. If the scan is down, the lock-on can't be broken by the Burrow. Last few moments was good for HeroMarine. I mean, the third base was up in the sky, but again, it's not like Solar's ever had like a massive economy. He's now trying to switch out of this purely Roach style into melee upgrades, Baneling Nest, all the rest. Scans out into the main base. Obviously, HeroMarine wants to check to see just where he's at tech-wise in this game. How far along is his opponent? How soon is HeroMarine going to be in a whole bunch of trouble against some more teched-up units and so on? These are always good questions to be asking, and that scan obviously provides vision on the Hive still morphing. That's a big infestor just burrowed up over here in the few Roaches that can obviously maybe pop up on top of the army as well. Obviously, right now, if those Roaches popped up, they'd get murdered, but a counterattack, a flank, I mean, take your pick, really. And even just the Infestor, if you can fungal growth a good amount of the Cyclones and the main army gets to jump on them because they can't kite anymore, also absolutely massive. So these burrowed units are potentially the bane of HeroMarine right here. As that one Infestor just slips off over to the side. Okay, here we go. We're going to wait for the first few shots, and here we go. Massive fungal growth. The Roaches from the back as well. The few Banelings are going to waddle forward. No Bane speed yet, otherwise it would have been even more destructive. So it's a hell of a play from Solar, and he's going to keep on chasing down these few Cyclones. The tank's not sieged either because HeroMarine wasn't quite ready for Solar to come through with such commitment. In the end, HeroMarine salvages the rough situation and is going to be able to get these tanks sieged up. Is going to get some shots off. Cyclones still locking on and clearing out. And the supplies are going to once again remain relatively even. As our Cyclones come through, pushing the Roach Ravager back. And just seeing that this is going to be, for now, the defense again from HeroMarine. And honestly, supplies are still so good for him. Like, them being so even always feels amazing for the Terran player here. And it's the Zerg that definitely wants to try and get ahead. But I wouldn't mind supplies being even if Solar had more tech, but he's still playing like the very baseline tech of this game because he was on Roaches for so long. He never got away into Lingbane. He never got away into absolutely everything else that you're usually meant to have. And that's kind of just straight up the issue, right? That is kind of just the issue, as a few Lings Continue to run across roaches, ravages, a few banes coming in. Nice fungal growth again on a few of those cyclones. Is it enough to get the kills, though? I mean, the single fungal is decent, but if you don't kill those units during that fungal, then they do begin to kite away again. That's kind of what's going on. A little burrow as some of these roaches get behind the rest of the army. There's a HeroMarine trying to fight forward for a 5th base. It's his natural base relocated, by the way, so his natural just getting taken out to a brand new position, get going once again. I mean, why not? You need economy. It's not been an easy game to play because you've been rebuilding your units all the time. Again, we are on our way back to more siege tanks, by the way, so just more and more of these tanks really solidifying a stronger mech army as this game progresses. The roaches just going to pop in, and they will get a couple of more SCVs. 9 workers going down. And we'll just have our couple cyclones picking their way through. A couple of those roaches as well. The roach just about escaping out to the natural expansion as well, so just about able to get over there. As Investor pops out, drops the fungal growth, and is just going to be able to kill off a couple of those cyclones. Bane's coming in, roaches, ravages coming through. A couple more bane lanes crashing on by. We are going to be seeing Solar again is getting a big trade. A lot of SCVs especially going down. Makes you wonder, can HeroMarine sustain this? Can he maintain the income necessary to be okay here? Does he have scans? Oh, the infested dodges back out of the scan. Just as the scan went down, the infested turned and refused to get caught by that. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Nice save from the infested, honestly. I mean, it is kind of cute. And obviously, an infestor is expensive, right? If there's one thing you don't want to be rebuilding here as Solar, it pretty much is those infestors. They are the most expensive things of all. As a missile turret goes up, a couple of cyclones still producing a siege tank on the way in. Still just don't feel like Solar has the tech or the army supply lead to really be in a good position right now. But that's the weird thing about mech. Mech is this kind of, army as well, or composition as well, that kind of struggles to end games and is very good at surviving, but then how does he turn this into an attack himself that goes across the map and is a little bit more game ending, right? It's a very tough question too, as Lingbane Roach Ravager pulls back into the center. Three more Vipers coming out, plus 3 missiles, plus 3 melee. This entire army of HeroMarine just setting up across the bottom side as a couple of SCVs pulling in, Cyclones being repaired. Really, a few moments to come. I don't have much to say because obviously everyone's just sort of setting up, and it has been kind of an action-packed game for 18 minutes. We're actually going to have both armies maxed out, which I would like to say generally benefits the mech player, but then, I mean, Solar didn't need to let this get to a maxed out state if he didn't want it to, so clearly he can't feel too bad about that, unless he just really felt like what he was doing before wasn't working, so this is his only option now. He's got a lot of units. I actually feel like we're maybe missing Hellions from this because there's a lot of Lings. And I feel like with more Hellions, you would have a much better time. There are a few Hellbats towards the back as the Blinding Cloud Swarm comes through. That's going to allow a lot of these Lings to get on top of those final tanks here. Some of these Cyclones still dropping in. Solar taking a pretty massive fight, but he's still going to have to back away. And he's still going to have to rebuild on the back of this. And I think the biggest issue on that is still going to be the factor as well that, well, straight up, the Terran is already here, so while your reinforcements are building, the Terran is, getting more damage done. Still finding value. The Lings, though, massive off surround, and it's going to be enough to get the GG. And HeroMarine couldn't get enough done with the reinforcement, or before the reinforcements got there, and Solar wins out Game 1 on Royal Blood. In the top left-hand corner, up 1-0, our Red Zerg here, back-to-back Winter Champion, looking to do it, and the triple, it is Solar. Bottom right-hand corner, our Blue Terran, HeroMarine from eSports. And we have just seen so many great games this tournament. You guys are going to get sick of hearing this from me this week, honestly, but we just keep getting really good games. Like, day after day, the games are so freaking good. It's kind of a little bit ridiculous. And already our first game, very fun, entertaining, something a little different. Like I say, I mean, don't get me wrong, like Mass and Roaches isn't the most innovative thing either, but Adjustments that I've not really seen as much against these kind of armies, like, you know, the single upgrade, not going carapace, not, you know, really kind of just piling on the Roach Ravager pressure, massing out there to try and just overwhelm the Cyclones, which typically you do add Lings in with as well. Like, the Lings being so late was kind of unique. A very fun game to start. We'll see what Game 2 brings us. Grezvan the map, and obviously with Grezvan being our battlefield, it's very possible to see that kind of longer game break out once again. There's 100% a chance of that happening. As yo, Scriptoke, thank you so much for the 2-month resub. Welcome back. Thanks for supporting the channel, the tournament, and our events. Says, yes, final day of the Winter Championship, guys. I know it's gotten by in a blur, really. The last few days have been just absolutely stellar. But don't worry, we will be back over the weekend with the WardiTV Korean Royale as well. So we've got that over this weekend. And then next week we wrap up the Korean Royale over the weekend as well. The first season of the $10,000 WardiTV Korean Royale will be coming to a close. So we've basically TLDR still got a crap ton of SC2 for you guys to enjoy. Basically. Overlord to scout at the front. Command center in action over there, as we will have the Lings, a couple of Queens, all of this being brought out for the moment. And a drone or so being added in. Factory still on the way out, and the command center popping on along as well for the moment. So all of this coming through as our few Lings will turn around, and the Reaper already going to begin taking some shots of damage. So a little bit of damage being done there. When it goes down, drone gets bopped, and the Queen just going to come through. Again, that Reaper getting turned back around the other side. And it's going to be a triple command center from HeroMarine. So obviously just very standard opening. Last game we saw CC first. This time Reaper expand into triple CC. Obviously no second factory this time, so not looking for that super fast blue flame or anything. I gotta say credit to Solar as well, right? He really scouted that blue flame late last game, and he pulled off a really good defense considering that he didn't lose drones. He only lost you know, the few Lings that were out there, kind of there to be lost in situations like that. So yeah, very nicely done. Seen that Clem plays mech recently. Is that a new meta in Europe? Mech has just become very good since the Cyclones. It's not necessarily just a European meta, but it's kind of starting to be figured out a little bit more. And I think especially when you see, you know, Europe versus Korea and they're playing on the North American server, the Europeans will trend towards maybe using mech a bit if possible, because it, you know, undoes the latency issues, the Terrans. So it's less latency problematic compared to like Bio or so. So I think that's a part of it. I wouldn't say it's, I mean, it's been kind of around a little bit in Korea, but I feel like when we see the Europeans playing each other, it's still just a lot of Bio. So it's developing. It'll definitely be interesting to see just how good mech ends up being. Usually the problem with mech is mech comes around, it's really good for like 2 weeks, and the Zergs are like, huh, wait, what's the trick that you're using to make mech good? Oh, battle cruisers are killing my drones early. Oh, you know, you're using Cyclones. And the Zergs have like a week or two where they start figuring it out, and then after a month, boom, mech is just like, mech just doesn't feel like it's good anymore. It just feels as though it's just, you know, Zergs know how to deal with it. Even if you get a good opening, the Zergs can come back in the game. It just gets figured out. And it just feels like that's a real consistent fact. Like, this happens all the time almost with mech. Every time it becomes popular, it just doesn't stick around at all. Spores coming up, they're on the way. The drones all producing from Solar. The Baneling Nest on the way from Solar as well. As the Spore Crawler coming through. A couple of SCVs producing as well. We do have our fusion core completed, so this is going to be a battle cruiser opening as HeroMarine just gets out of the supply block. And yeah, a battle cruiser to start off with here. And that likely leads us into mech once again from HeroMarine here on Grezvan. So likely going to see a second coming of mech, but potentially very different because you don't necessarily have to play the Cyclone Hellion. He could just play into tanks and so on from here. I think it's very likely he probably plays Cyclone Hellion again, but you know, the possibility to change it up is around. With the BCs being produced, you won't be able to afford as much right away. Depends how many BCs we go for. We're used to talking about triple BC, getting Yamato every single time. That's not actually as much of a guarantee nowadays. It feels like that's a little bit more kind of like, do I want to say old school? Like, that's how mech was kind of setting up every single time in the past, but like I say, now it's not really quite as much of a, it's not really quite as quite as common as that. And I think with the fact that you want to build Hellion Cyclone behind it, maybe we don't always see a second battle cruiser. Maybe a second, but maybe not a third, right? So let's see, as Solar opens with a Spire quickly, that's great. The sooner you get Corruptors up against these PCs, the sooner you can properly shut them down and not have to deal with their harassment in as big of a way. First drone going down, we'll find a second here. The Queen's taking a little while to get in. The drones on the extractors obviously able to dive into those extractors for safety. And that does save a couple of them a couple of times, actually, so it's a nice little benefit. Rotro and Spire all coming up. The Lings and the Overlords continue to produce, but that Lings will continue to run in, looking to try and grab those Hellions. Well, obviously the combination of attacks here can definitely work out, as we do see this battle cruiser back into action. Queen getting chased away, a couple of drones being killed as well. 5, 6 workers down, and this is now adding up a little bit more. Oh my god, can we actually kill off some of those drones? He got every single one on the extractor, low HP, and then didn't actually do anything to finish them. Finally got them in the end. It just seemed like it was going on for a while, as the counterattack of Solar doesn't go anywhere, and here Marine has actually just done so much. He's going to come killing more drones. I think Solar is... I think he's dead, because these Hellions are going to get rid of all of these drones. That's not going to last very long at all, and... yeah, okay, well, the Hellions kind of stopping for a moment. Maybe could have shot at some Zerglings instead for a few moments, however... I mean, the damage is done. 27 workers killed. This PC, I think, is just fully committed here. Okay, actually has a teleport out even, so Jesus. Lasted long enough to have a teleport out. Okay, now Corruptors are on the field, but you're 20 plus workers behind, and Solar is going to be in a ton of trouble. As HeroMarine takes, well, just a massive supply lead. Nothing really else to be said about that. It's just a pretty major advantage. As you see, a few Banelings morphing in, so getting those set up. Corruptors hanging around. Roach Speed is coming online. +1 flyer attacks also producing here. We begin to move across the map. HeroMarine going to bring Cyclones and Hellions over to the top side. Ready to run into this 12 o'clock base. Cyclone, of course, will kill the Queen, and it's all just going GG. He realizes he's very far behind. He's not going to waste any time trying to stay in this. How does Mass Cyclone fare versus Mutas? Very well. Because one of the things that got changed with the Cyclones in the patch was that the Cyclones now prioritize air units with their lock-ons. So actually beforehand, Ling Muta just destroyed Cyclones because the Cyclones would just lock onto the Lings. You'd have to manually lock onto Mutas. So not only do you get +10 damage against Mutas with the Cyclones that you didn't have before because of the mag field change, you also have the the fact that you lock onto the Mutas more naturally as well. So you're pretty much always, when Mutas fly in, getting a lock on and killing a whole bunch of them. So yeah, obviously, like, enough Mutas can still overwhelm Cyclones, but the Cyclones fare a lot better than they used to. And if the numbers are somewhat even, then I don't think we have too many issues. Bottom right, our red Terran is going to be HeroMarine. Taking on the blue Zerg. This is Solar. Game 3, Babylon. Not a bad map to finally play bio on, perhaps, if you are HeroMarine. It's short, it's good to reinforce on. There's definitely some strong positions you can take. We saw Kua really abusing those heavily yesterday against Solar in the upper bracket semifinals. We see Kua abusing those later on today. Kua plays another TvZ in the winner bracket finals, taking on Ragnarok. As our Reaper comes through, and for the moment just following this Overlord, but obviously as the Reaper pops out, we'll be able to follow that for a little while and see what sort of trouble it gets up to. Do we think it's going to be mech again? I really do think this is the bio map. I think this is the one we bio it in. Things come through. Reaper going to get chased away. Aid goes down. A couple of drones getting picked away at. Factory's coming around again. Reaper taking a few shots at the moment. You have the factory going to swap on over into the reactor. Starport on the way. Double gas, no third CC, so maybe we do see something aggressive again here out of HeroMarine. He could just go BC open again. He could go Banshees and into some kind of Banshee mech if he does want to still play mech again. That's something we've not seen yet, right? Could do some kind of very aggressive help out attack too. Maybe not expected on a map that Terran players typically enjoy anyway, and maybe you catch Solar off guard there. We'll find out very soon what he's about to build. He's got a lot of gas. He was building the extra marine instead of an add-on with the barracks, and that kind of made me believe there's potentially going to be something more aggressive, but now you see the fusion core going down. We're just going to run it back with the battle cruisers to get this up and running. Well, Queen's turning around, Hellion taking some shots already. We do have the Rotron already producing from Solar. Now, there's a couple of Marines come in, one on the top, one on the bottom, just going to go after that Overlord. Try and pick a way through that. There's a few Hellions ready to dart around. Go for a dive onto this mineral line where we're going to get 3 drones straight away. Take it 4, good catch. A couple of Lings as well, the other few Lings coming around. It's going to be a pretty solid defense there as these few Hellions come back into the middle of the map. So far, so good. Still seeing a battle cruiser coming up as well, by the way, so that's still coming into play. The Rotron is about to complete. Gonna grab that Zerglin as well. It's a nice little addition. Again, 2 Queens coming out, a couple of refineries all on the way. Command center building on the side of HeroMarine. Again, that 3rd base set up, but this is all about the battlecruiser very shortly here. We'll see what Solar's defense will be like. We are adding on the spores to be safe. Make sure that we're not going to get overrun or anything. Very important. Two factories are obviously on the way as well, so we are going to stick to mech every single game here. This is still a server preference. I talked about latency, and obviously I would say that typically the Terrans prefer to play mech when latency is involved, if mech is viable, so not too surprising then for this to maybe be back onto Solar's side. Back on Solar's server preference to go back to mech again is maybe one of the most, one of the best reasons why we could do something. These Hellions need to decide what they're going to do. They got all split up there, not sure what quite happened. Anyways, the BC having a pretty good start. Doesn't take much damage at all as these Hellions are going to run up this ramp, getting surrounded by Lings. That's a disaster. These Hellions are just super derping. I mean, the BC alone's done great damage. If those Hellions were able to find just a handful of drones, that would have been amazing. There's now a counterattack across the map. BC can't get back there with a teleport or anything as Roach is already arriving. And yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a problem as we only have Hellions to defend. The new BC is not ready yet, and they take a long time to build. That means that Solar's going to get quite a bit of damage done. First Hellion goes down, the Roaches continue to trade. The Lings wrap around, first depot going down in the corner. A couple Mules dropping in, Spire's still coming up, Cyclone's building. Well, the Cyclone's coming up to being about halfway done as the 2 Hellions, the battlecruiser all coming through, the couple Lings getting chased away. Again, the Roach Ravager is being chased back by the BC. All the Zerglings go down. So this was 8 SCVs killed. It definitely makes up for the damage that Solar took initially. Now he's going to have the Spire, so he'll have access to the Corruptors for the future phases of this game. Having the Corruptors to chase down battlecruisers is almost always going to be important. As a mag field accelerator gets underway, a couple of Cyclones, a couple of Hellions all coming out, the Amato cannon is coming up to completion in the next few moments as well. Seven Corruptors on the way out. Roach Speed coming through. We'll be finishing very shortly, as we do just have the Hellions and the Cyclones and the Battle Cruisers all making their way out to the middle of the map right here. Well, a group of units just out to the right side as well. Hellion Cyclone ready to make a little bit of a dive in. Cyclone's locking on. Roach is already taking some damage. The couple of Lings will go chasing. Both Battle Cruisers just going to teleport out of there. So that's the kind of the way the game plays. As BCs get a couple of Yamatos down, they teleport out away from the Corruptors. Very standard kind of trade outs. It's one of the ways that mech became viable, because basically what happens is those BCs provide the efficiency that you need throughout the game by killing off a Corruptor here and there. That efficiency really allows the mech to be that much more viable than it would be without the BCs just trading out with the Corruptors every time. So yeah, that little bit of value. And it forces a certain amount of the army supply to be set into Corruptors as well, which stops the Zerg reaching some of the swarminess that they oftentimes need to overwhelm a mech army as well. So a lot of benefits, and that's again why BC mech was kind of the only mech that we've seen for the last 2 years or so, until Battle Mech has taken a bit more of a resurgence recently, and we have seen some mech styles that go without the BCs, such as what we saw from HeroMarine in Game 1. Look at him go. 2 more starboards, by the way. He's going to keep building BCs, and he's really just going to go for, well, essentially kind of just mass BC late game already. Now, Solar is just going to surge forward and attack. Solar's plan here is to just go all out. He has the Corruptor count to kill off the BCs potentially, and if he can get rid of the BCs, then he hopes the Roach Ravager will be able to win out on the ground. This is the kind of build that works well if you've had a good start to the game. And I'd say with a little bit of damage that Solar got done in that counterattack, he's definitely had that factor. Easy has to teleport away. The problem is, where does the BC teleport to? If the BC teleports too close to home, the Corruptors can just go hunting forward, and I imagine that will happen right now. The Roaches and the Ravagers still here, and this is just going to be enough from Solar. GG is called. Solar's going to take it down 2-1, and Solar stays alive into the top 4 of the WardiTV Winter Championships today. All right, Solar 2-1, advancing through and keeping his Winter Championships.